Portable TV. Come watch with me. Less than a year ago, President Trump pulled the U.S. out of the Open Skies Treaty, and now Russia's State Duma has voted to do the same. Lawmakers in Moscow blame the United States for getting the ball rolling, saying that Washington initiated is another step forward towards eroding global security. RT's Alex Mihailovich has that story.
Following the footsteps of the United States, the Russian parliament's lower house has voted to withdraw from the Open Skies Treaty.
Depriving Russian aircraft of the open sky and the access of its airspace, the United States kept a possibility to get documents on observation flights over the territory of Russia from its allies from NATO. We should note the treaty limits such a possibility.
The Open Skies Treaty, which was signed in 1992 and took effect in 2002, aims to build trust between Russia and the West by allowing the more than 36 signatories of the agreement to conduct reconnaissance flights over each other's territories. Treaty members are allowed to collect information about each other's military forces and activities, which assists in monitoring compliance when it comes to various international arms control and other agreements. More than 1,500 flights have been conducted under the treaty. U.S. President Donald Trump had the United States exit the pact last year, arguing that Russia violated the agreement.
I think we have a very good relationship with Russia, but Russia didn't adhere to the treaty, so until they adhere, we will pull out.
Moscow has always denied the accusations, and even after the United States left the pact, Russia was willing to stay on board on the condition that NATO allies agreed not to share information with D.C. that was gathered during their surveillance flights over Russia. This, however, never happened. That said, Russia has made it clear that it is still willing to revisit the treaty.
We are ready to deal with all mutual concerns as a whole, but such a discussion will become possible only after the United States would have made an unequivocal statement about the decision to return to the treaty.
The vote by Russia's State Duma to withdraw from the pact came hours before U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov held their first face-to-face meeting in Reykjavik. The maneuvering over open skies did not seem to damper the mood in Iceland, where both sides were accused of polite political sparring.
Nobody is shouting, nobody is asking questions.
I think it's a slow night in Reykjavik.
Russia's upper house, the Federation Council, will be voting on the bill to withdraw from the Open Skies Treaty on June the 2nd, and is expected to follow the Duma's decision. Once President Putin signs the bill, it will take 6 months for Russia to exit the agreement, and many hope that will be more than enough time to reverse the U.S.-initiated trend, which some are calling a blow to international arms control. For RT, I'm Alex Mihailovich.
And for international perspective, we'll talk with former UK MP George Galloway. So George, in what proved to be one of President Trump's final acts as president, he withdrew the U.S. from this decades-old Open Skies Treaty. The U.S. formally submitted its intent almost exactly a year ago today, with a 6-month consideration period. The U.S. was properly out in November of 2020 after the elections. The DoD's press release on this blames Russia for not abiding by its rules. How do you view that?
Well, this was one of the most petulant of many such acts by Donald Trump. Absolutely self-harming. This was an American idea, you know. I haven't seen anyone else refer to that, but this Open Skies Treaty was first proposed when I was 1 year old by President Eisenhower. It was rejected then by the Soviet leadership, but it was a very good idea in 1955, and it's still a good idea in 2021. It's the only way that countries can be confident that other countries that are in a state of quasi-belligerence towards them are not involved in military build-ups, military developments that might harm their security. So when the United States unilaterally, it was quite a common theme of the Trump administration, unilaterally withdrew from this treaty, it wasn't just harming the security of the rest of us, it harms the security of the United States. Now, it came just too late for the incoming Biden administration to put the brakes on it. As you say, November 2020, you were out of there, but I very much hope that in the parliamentary procedures inside the Duma now, and then the 6-month grace period, once Russia itself withdraws, that the United States will come back into this. It was an American idea.
Yeah.
It was a good one.
Now, on that note, George, we should get the viewer up to speed. It was passed in the lower house. It has yet to move up the chain, up to Vladimir Putin as of yet. So as of right now, Russia is technically still a party to this treaty, though albeit alone. Should Russia formally withdraw, what does this mean then for the surveillance of one another?
Well, it would mean that it finishes. And because the other NATO partners cannot possibly guarantee that they would not share information with the United States, it means that they would not be allowed to overfly Russian territory either. That's how silly all of this is. Childish, really. The reality is that the parliamentary process in Russia is slow, but it grinds exceedingly fine. And it will happen that Russia will withdraw if nothing happens to return to the status quo ante. And all of us should be pressing for that. And I'm sure that a man like Secretary Blinken, who seems to be trying to reset relations with Russia, is seized of the importance of this, crucial importance. Because what it means is Russia could be moving forces, moving weapons, could be evincing bad intention towards American allies, and America will have no right to overfly Russia, and vice versa, of course. That's how silly it all is, Manila.
Yeah, now, George, I don't get this, because it sounds like a reasonable deal to make with all these major parties in the world. So, having been a longtime statesman yourself, what could possibly be the rationale in the first place for either of these two world powers to get out of the deal?
Well, I'll be brutally frank. It was because Donald Trump was trying to prove that he was not a Russian agent. He was not the Manchurian candidate. It was the whole bogus, fake news hysteria over Russiagate that prompted Trump to do this. Otherwise, no one would do such a self-harming thing. It was therefore a casualty of what will, in history, seem to be the period in which the United States political class and its media echo chamber quite lost its mind, lost its senses. And then the president of the US, in order to defend himself from these bogus charges, has gone and done something as self-harming and harming to the rest of us as this.
Absolutely. Good points as always. George Galloway, thank you for being with us today.